According to the Bible, what year was Jesus born? When you Google this question, the first answer that probably pops up is something like, most scholars assume a date of birth between 6 and 4 BCE. But I think that's not quite right. There have been some great videos on this topic, but I think there's a little more information available which can give us a more complete answer. Historians generally agree Jesus was probably a real person who lived. However, there's not enough historical data to say exactly when he was born. But we can examine the assumptions behind the different years ancient sources present as the birth year of Jesus. According to the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus was born under King Herod. Scholars generally agree that Herod died in 4 BCE, when he was succeeded by his son Archelaus. Matthew makes several assumptions about Jesus' early years. First, that the family fled to Egypt and waited there until Herod's death. Second, that Herod believed baby Jesus to be under 2 years of age when he allegedly ordered the execution of the firstborn sons. Using this 2-year number is how you get the popular notion that according to Matthew, Jesus was born in 6 BCE. But the timeline in the narrative isn't clear about how long the family spent in Egypt or how soon Herod had discovered the Magi deceived him. So, while 6 BCE does seem like the latest possible date for Matthew, there's no reason he couldn't have imagined the birth occurring a few years earlier than that. However, it's problematic to assume this date based on Matthew. First of all, most scholars consider the birth story in Matthew a literary invention. Herod the Great was a historical figure, but there's no evidence he ordered the slaughter of all children under 2 years of age in Judea. Instead, Matthew is attempting to link Jesus' birth story to the story in Exodus, where Pharaoh orders the killing of Israelite children. Second, Matthew's timeline is contradicted by Luke. In Luke's Gospel, Jesus was born during a census issued by Caesar Augustus, when Quirinius was governor of Syria. Now, this census is historically problematic for several reasons. First, it says there was a census of the entire Roman world. Well, Augustus reigned from 37 BCE to 14 CE. During this time, there was no census of the entire Roman world. There was a census of Judea in 6 CE, when Quirinius was governor of Syria, which is the only historical census Luke could be referring to. However, Luke also says it required people to return to their ancestral hometown, and scholars agree the census under Quirinius would not have required that. It was instead a convenient plot device that got Luke and Mary from Nazareth to Bethlehem in order to fulfill a prophecy. So, according to Luke's Gospel, Jesus was born in 6 CE. But, as many scholars have pointed out, Luke is mistaken about something. Earlier, Luke says that John the Baptist was born under someone referred to as King Herod. This probably means Herod the Great, who had the title king. But if this is the case, it seems unlikely that Luke also intended the birth of John the Baptist and Jesus to be 10 years apart. This would be a very strange reading of the narrative. One possibility is that Luke actually meant Herod Archelaus, who succeeded Herod the Great. Archelaus didn't have the title king, but he did rule until 6 CE. The author of Mark makes a similar mistake in Mark chapter 6, where John the Baptist is beheaded by King Herod. However, this was Herod Antipas, another son of Herod the Great, who was also not technically a king. This would line up with the author of Luke's 6 CE birth date for Jesus. However, it doesn't line up with another key piece of information the Gospel of Luke also provides. Luke 3 tells us that Jesus began his ministry shortly after John the Baptist started baptizing people in the 15th year of Tiberius. We know from ancient records and coins that Tiberius' reign was officially counted from 14 CE, after the death of Augustus, and he reigned until 37 CE. Tiberius ascended to power in September. The most likely date for the 15th year of Tiberius was then 28 or 29 CE, depending on whether or not the short year was counted. To complicate this further, Tiberius actually co-reigned with Augustus for 2 years. So if Luke counted from 12 CE, then the 15th year of Tiberius was actually 26 or 27 CE. So we have a 4-year window between 26 and 29 CE when Jesus supposedly started his public ministry. Luke 3:23 also states, when he began his ministry, Jesus himself was about 30 years of age. So according to Luke, Jesus was about 30, sometime between 26 and 29 CE. It's unclear what about 30 means. Did the author mean that Jesus was closer to 30 than he was to 20 or 40? In which case, it could mean anything from 25 to 35, a 10-year range. Or did he mean that Jesus was close to 30, but not exactly, so within a year or so? There's a little clue that I think gives us an answer. Luke 8:42 mentions the daughter of a synagogue ruler who was about 12 years of age. It seems evident here that the author is not just communicating that she was an adolescent, as he would have had other means to do so. Rather, he's trying to say that she was close to 12, but maybe either side. So I think it's more likely that Luke meant Jesus was around 29 to 31 when he started his public teaching, rather than Jesus being anywhere from 25 to 35. Since for Luke, Jesus started teaching between 26 and 29 CE, then this would actually put the birth of Jesus somewhere between 6 BCE and 1 CE, a range of 7 years. Which, as you will notice, does not cross over with the census of Quirinius in 6 CE. So again, it seems that the author of Luke was mistaken about the census of Quirinius. Another possibility is that some scholars suggest Luke 1-2 was penned by a different author. If this is the case, the two authors may have had completely different timelines. There isn't much more information from the Gospels that can tell us when Jesus was born. Trying to work backwards from Jesus' death isn't very fruitful. Scholars generally accept that the historical Jesus was likely executed under Pontius Pilate, who was the governor of Judea between the years 26 and 36 CE. But even with this window, none of the Gospels are clear on how old Jesus was when he died or how long his ministry lasted. The Synoptic Gospels depict a 1-year ministry, and the Gospel of John depicts a 2-year ministry. But these are highly literary works. It's unlikely their chronology is accurate. It could have been several more years, condensed down for narrative reasons. So, moving beyond the Gospels, what about the early church? What did they think? Well, funnily enough, many early Christian writers thought Jesus was born in the 41st or 42nd year of Augustus. They often had different calculations, but mostly ended up working out to 2 or 3 BCE. So when you hear people say, scholars agree Jesus was born between 6 and 4 BCE, in reality, if we are assuming the primary texts have any useful data, then the window is actually much wider. But the reality is that the birth narratives are highly literary accounts. The historical Jesus could have been born earlier or later, we simply don't know. If you enjoyed this video, consider supporting the channel on Patreon or becoming a channel member. It really helps make these videos possible. My name's Lachlan, and you've been watching Tablets and Temples, where we unpack ancient history and religion. And I will see you in the next one.